insulin resistance, of course, but I want to talk about this one superfood called fiber, and we'll talk about fasting a little bit too, and how it's actually helping not only insulin resistance, but type 2 diabetes, and yes, even type 1 diabetics. Is it going to cure type 1 diabetics? No, but is it going to help them? Yes. So there's a number of different fibers involved here. You guys understand that fiber is not just a one and done thing. It's not like every fiber is the same and works the same in your body. So it's important to understand what fibers are actually helping with glucose control so that you can get your insulin resistance under control. And we're going to dive into some specific types of fiber and what they are and how they're helping with insulin resistance. So buckle up. I hope this is an exciting talk for people because really at the bottom line of this, at the end of today, what I want you to understand is that it doesn't take medications to get your insulin resistance or diabetes under control, that you have the control in your own hands. You don't have to go get a prescription. You don't have to do all of that. You can actually start to adjust the nutrients you get in your diet, and that can help you even when you're getting in negative nutrients or too much sugar. So let's dive in. First of all, please understand that insulin resistance is really a disorder of glucose dysregulation. So what does that mean? It means too much blood sugar in our bloodstream that our body can't handle. It elicits a hormone to carry that blood sugar around to all the cells of the body. And at some point, when it's too much, when we've had too much of it in, then the body starts to shut down to that, both the delivery of the energy, which is what glucose is, and the signals from insulin to deliver the energy. So now we have a body that's starting to have problems because some cells are not getting in enough energy, some cells are getting in too much energy, and it's causing other problems, but there's just this wide disarray. Insulin resistance is really a misleading name for the disorder because it would lead us to believe that we're just completely resistant, and we're not. But this too much insulin, chronic too much insulin, causes a number of problems. You see all of these listed. All of these things are linked to insulin resistance and how it reacts in our body. So at the end of today, what I want to do is show you one simple way. There's many that I talk about, but I'm going to talk about one simple thing today that you can start doing for your diet that's going to help you with all of this stuff if it's linked to insulin resistance. So that one thing happens to be fiber. I mentioned that before. Fiber, you guys, is so key, especially if you're eating carbohydrates. And most importantly, if you're eating carbohydrates. If you're not getting in fiber with your carbohydrates, it's like you're getting this sugar syrup directed directly to your bloodstream, and now you're having these problems of dysregulation of glucose. This happens because of the packaged and processed foods we have today, but it also happens because our foods are just genetically modified. So even the things that you think you're eating that are healthy may not have enough fiber in them to deal with the glucose amount in them, and now you're getting sick from what you've been told is a healthy food, and you're like, what did I do wrong? What's going on? So we're talking about all of that. I'm just checking to make sure there's no messages on the other channels. So I want you to understand too that if you just add fiber to that glucose, it slows down the delivery of the glucose. So even when you have a piece of cake occasionally, you have this fiber in beforehand, it's going to slow down how quickly that sugar breaks down and hits your bloodstream, lowering a blood sugar spike. There are different ranges that studies have shown this reduction of blood sugar spike. Some with just normal fiber says about 10 to 13%. Some have shown, one specific fiber I'm going to talk about today has shown to reduce a spike by about 59%. But the fiber that I use reduces it by about 20%, which is huge when we're talking about the impact of sugar and the load of insulin in our body. So insulin doesn't need to be out all the time. We don't need it all the time. We only need it when we're putting energy into our body. So if we're constantly snacking, you guys, we've got to stop snacking all the time. Like, I get it. I do. I was a huge snacker, but that's one of the most detrimental things to your health. This whole eating every 2 hours, that model is there's no science behind that model showing that it's actually beneficial to your metabolism. And long term, and I'm a product of that long term, it can be harmful. So I bought into the eat every 2 hours thing when I was in my mid 20s and continued it until a few years ago when I started to understand insulin resistance much better. In that time, I went from about 150 pounds to about 270 pounds because I was eating twice a day. Now, even when I was watching my calories and stuff, I was having this problem. So is it all about calorie restriction? No. Let's get back to the fiber. The fiber is going to slow that down, that sugar down, right? That slows down a blood sugar spike. But it's not just one type of fiber, guys. It takes a variety of fibers. So when we think about things like broccoli and some dark leafy green vegetables, primarily those are like the insoluble fiber that's acting like a broom throughout your body. So if you sat down and ate a big bushel of broccoli, it could help your blood sugar spike be less, but it's not doing the overall job. And so we want to talk about what can. And I'm going to go over these. If I can get this pulled up, you guys, I don't have all of these things in my head. So let's talk about something called guar gum. It's not really gum. It kind of is, but it's more so a fiber. And what that fiber does is it actually increases insulin sensitivity, and it helps with that sugar sensitivity or sugar metabolism as well. Now, the interesting thing with guar gum is the studies have shown that it can work, but it's best if you're starting to lose weight with the guar gum as well. So the guar gum in somebody who's continually still putting in a horrible amount of food and the wrong types of food is not going to make a whole lot of effect. It needs you to change what you're doing and stop putting so much sugar in, and it starts to work. That's just one, but it does work for sugar regulation when it's not inundated with that, right? So guar gum works, but another fiber that really helps is called locust bean gum. It's a fiber. It's a fiber. So locust bean gum slows gastric emptying, which means that it acts similar to, like, I keep going back to the GLP-1 because that's so popular right now. But this is one of the things that's acting like a GLP-1 in our gut when we're talking about our fiber. So it's slowing that gastric emptying by by holding on to this food so that it's not wanting to go through too quickly. It's not slowing gastric emptying by freezing your muscles, which is what the drugs do. They teach your muscles not to contract as strongly, and so now you're holding on to food. So the holding on to food so it doesn't deliver into the small intestine where stuff gets absorbed is good in the right amount. And if it's doing it by holding onto the food because it's just too thick to pass through, not by freezing the gut up. So locust bean gum does a lot of that. It helps with weight loss, especially when you're adding it with fasting. And you guys, although this is about fiber, I want to say something. I say it all the time, and I had to say it a bunch of times this weekend. Fasting, intermittent fasting, is not about calorie restriction. It's about metabolic flexibility. It's about letting your body do the job it's supposed to do. If you're supposed to be on a 2,000 calorie diet, intermittent fasting doesn't mean you have to cut your calories, nor does it mean you should cut your calories. It means you're giving your body the chance to flip between basically an on-off signal, or just have that metabolic flexibility to go from burning sugar to burning fat. That's what intermittent fasting is. Don't get it confused. So when I talk about these fibers working in conjunction with intermittent fasting, part of that is because we're reducing the load of this food, basically sugar that we eat all the time. It's relieving our body from having to deal with that for a certain period of time. And then when we do add the fibers in later when we eat, they have a better chance of doing their job. You're struggling. I hate when I wear a white shirt because then it makes it really hard for me to see the comments. So let me see what I missed. You're struggling in the morning. And there was another comment that didn't come through. Okay. You're struggling so much in the AM. You're very nauseous and even puking a little. Any suggestions? Are you on the system? I need to know that. Okay, so those are two types: guar gum, locust bean gum. And this is going to be important because if you pick up this box, you're going to see all these fibers here. So citrus pectin. Now, citrus pectin is a type of fiber, and don't get it confused with citric acid. A lot of people are allergic to citrus because they're allergic to citric acid, maybe not the citrus pectin. So it's important, if you want to do this and you're saying, well, I'm allergic to citrus, have your allergy clinic test you for this because it's different than the citric acid that's likely causing allergic reactions. So I want you to understand that. But citrus pectin, um, this was shown in diabetic rats, in a study with diabetic rats, to significantly reduce insulin resistance. So a lot of the studies that we have, some are done on humans. Unicity does a lot on humans, but a lot of these are from animal studies. That's just the way it is, guys. Just it is what it is. So I have to read because I don't remember all of this stuff. So not only did the citrus pectin help with the blood sugar dysregulation, but it did actually, now this one, instead of being independent of weight loss, citrus pectin actually helps with weight loss. So we have a couple of fibers that really need you to be acting on, or one fiber that needs you to be acting on weight loss. And we have another fiber that works better when it's with some intermittent fasting. That's just the fiber itself. That's nothing that we have to do with it. That's just the way it is. And now we have a fiber that actually helps those two, with fasting and with um, the blood sugar and losing weight. So citrus pectin does all of that, but it also helps delay gastric emptying. So I'm going to get through a couple more because I think there's 5 or 6 here. That oat fiber. Oat fiber is actually a really good fiber. And so it's, remind me to talk about gluten-free halal later. Now it is a soluble fiber, and so what it does is it soaks up those carbohydrates, and again slows the gastric emptying into the small intestine, so that the sugar isn't absorbing as quickly. But with oat fiber, through a number of mechanisms, it's helping not only reduce the blood sugar, but it's helping insulin signaling pathways, meaning insulin now can communicate properly with the cells. It actually helps with that. So oat fiber is not just about the blood sugar reduction, it's actually helping those pathways that insulin has to signal to function more properly, so we're getting the right energy to the body. That's an amazing thing that we don't think about fiber doing for us, but it's absolutely crucial when we're looking at insulin resistance and diabetes. So if you're just doing like psyllium husk and you're not getting in some of these other fibers, you're missing key pieces of how this all can actually start to turn around diabetes and insulin resistance. It's also helped with coronary artery disease, oat fiber, and oh yeah, a couple of these fibers, I missed it on a couple of the other ones, but they also, it's not just about the blood sugars, right? It's helping with lipid regulation, and oat fiber actually helps with lipid regulation as well. So it's helping you from emptying your stomach too quickly. It's helping with insulin signaling. It's helping with lipid pathways. So oat fiber is really key in all of this. And again, you're just not getting it when you just do psyllium husk. So, and then beta glucan is an amazing fiber that does a lot. Because there was something about beta glucan I just learned this morning, and I was trying to remember what that was, but I learned a lot. So it also helps with delaying the gastric emptying in the stomach. This is the one that when they gave a certain group a meal and they started it with beta glucan, it actually reduced the insulin amount under curve. So it's just a response to insulin. So it means that the insulin spike was much less. So beta glucan not only is helping with the sugar, but because of that, it's helping with the insulin spike. Now, that amount under curve for insulin spike was 59%. So it actually dropped below the curve. So it was less than the average person having an insulin spike after using beta glucan before a meal. So that's really impactful. So it's not always about just the blood sugar spike, it's about how insulin is reacting. And so I hope you can see a couple of these fibers are starting to talk about how they're helping with this insulin signaling and insulin response and not just controlling blood sugars. So this is why I say all the time it takes more than one type of fiber to do the job that we're talking about. It takes more than one type of fiber to be able to get all of these benefits. You're not going to get all of these benefits from psyllium husk. It just isn't going to happen there. It's not built that way. So beta glucan is also helping with the an insulin signaling pathway, and it's helping with fat control and blood sugars. Um, There were 2 more fibers, and I don't have them on here, but look, the other thing that people are gonna talk to me about is, berberine or psyllium husk. So what I'm really getting to is this pre-meal drink that I drink every day. All these fibers are made or put in there. They're they were scientifically designed combinations of fiber. Doesn't mean we designed the fiber. It means that they took all of these fibers and said, this one does this piece, this one does this piece, this one does this piece. And all of these pieces, if we put them all together, how is that going to affect insulin resistance? That's what's happening inside that fiber, but they did more than that. But so the 2 that I always get are psyllium husk and berberine. Let's take a look at those couple of fibers because I just want you to know. Now, both of them have been shown to work. I don't have anything really against either one. Psyllium husk, I just caution that there have been a lot of studies, and I've had a lot of people talk about when they've had too much psyllium husk, it causes a lot of intestinal damage. Psyllium husk is pretty rough. So in moderate amounts, it's okay. But when people start overdoing psyllium husk, they may notice a lot of gastrointestinal discomfort issues, Crohn's, IBS, whatnot. So psyllium husk is really rough on your gut. Will it help lower blood sugars? A little bit, not as much as this combination. But that's the biggest thing. Now, berberine, there's even Dr. Bickman talks about berberine a little bit with insulin resistance. And berberine can do a really great job in helping with the control of blood sugars. I'm not going to deny that. But the big difference for me between berberine and this is that this is adding in all of these other factors that berberine doesn't, where it's helping signaling pathways, where it's helping with lipid control, where this is also has components in it that are helping with heart disease and blood flow and a number and your gut microbiome. Actually, fibers in this that and I believe it's beta glucans is one that really amp up when your microbiome, in particular, bacillus, I can't remember that one. I'll remember both of those types of gosh, I'm struggling today, you guys. I'll remember those in just a minute. But anyway, it helps feed those bacteria in the gut and create these short chain fatty acids that are helping us burn fat for fuel and do all of the good things that we need to do to help with insulin resistance. So berberine does work great, but when we add all of the other components that we're doing with balance, with unicity balance, it just does a much, much better job. So that's where I talk about all the time how this just doesn't work as well as this, and there's a reason why. It's all of that, but that's just talking about the biosphere fiber. We're not even gotten into like the 7X technology, the cardio matrix in here, and the vitamin and mineral panel that are in there. So some of the things that fiber, and I just learned recently, are in some studies, and there was many, many studies who came to similar conclusions. When a group they were of course eating the same things, doing the same things, but one group had fiber, just 5 grams of fiber before their first meal, and that was just one type of fiber. That reduced that meal spike by about 13%. Now, this has been shown in a high carbohydrate meal to reduce that spike by 20%. So this over a single fiber, there's almost double the reaction in it. Now, the interesting thing for me is even 4 to 5 hours later, if they ate something, the group who had fiber, the blood sugar spike was reduced by 60% over the group who hadn't had the fiber in the morning. Now, they weren't having another fiber at 4 to 5 hours. They were just having that snack or lunch, and their blood sugar spike was less by 60%. Now, then again, another interesting part is when this same group did fiber at dinner. So now they've had some fiber in the morning. Remember, the fiber in the morning only created a 13% difference in just a singular type of fiber. But the glucose spike reduced by 30% at their dinner meal after having fiber in the morning. So that fiber in the morning may not have done a job complete. I mean, it did a good job in the morning, right? But the effects of that fiber from the morning really compounded throughout the day. So when people ask me if I forgot to take my fiber, is it the end of the world? No, it's not. Is it best? I think if you do fiber before you eat anything just to help with the glucose spike, yes, I do. But now having this information, we can understand how fiber, and a lot of it is just how it's reacting with that gut microbiome, is kicking up this action where we just have better blood sugar control. And that doesn't just last for a half an hour to an hour after fiber. So for me, then, when I think about this fiber, that's 7 different types of soluble and insoluble fibers, it makes a huge difference in my mind. And I think it would for most people. Now, I missed a bunch of comments, so I got to get over here. Good morning, Melba. So I hope you understand what oat fiber is. I explained that. A serving of oatmeal spice. So no, and chia seeds and flax, I will talk about those at another time. I did not look up enough information to talk about those today. I've used both, and I do think that both are good, but are they as good as a well-rounded approach that's going to address all of the corners of insulin resistance and blood glucose control? I don't think so. Do I have any problem with adding flax into your diet? No. Do I have any problem with people having chia seed pudding or having chias? No. Nor should it be my problem. That's the thought in my head. People need to watch for rice powder fillers and supplements. Oh, yeah, yeah, and that's true too, Sheila. That's true too. That rice powder filler can spike insulin or sugar levels in your blood for sure. So, why is it important to have soluble and insoluble fibers in your fiber intake for the day? Let's take a look at the difference between them. Soluble fibers will soak up water. Neither one are digestible, right? So they're not giving you that glucose into the bloodstream. It's not giving you energy in that way. But so the soluble ones are soaking up water and they become this gelatin-like mass. Now, this is what is getting sticky and creating this matrix for those sugars to be held in. So I'm going to mix up my balance. I'm just have one this morning anyway. I have a little less water than normal this morning. And then I'm just going to open it up, because I want you to see what the soluble fibers are doing. So this makes sense when I talk about this gummy substance. That's it. Those few shakes, that's it. By the way, this won't break my fast. Okay, so I'm good. That was it. Now, when we look at the inside of the bottle, it's no longer clear. And there's this thick matrix starting to show up in there. So that amount that I just drank, and of course, if you can get more water in, good. And I usually drink more, but That's going to thicken up and it's going to start to help you feel full before you even eat. Berberine doesn't help you do all of this. So berberine isn't going to help you feel full before you eat. It's not going to it's not going to add as much to the insulin signaling pathways or your gut microbiome as strongly or any of that. So berberine you can do, but I want a well-rounded approach that's giving me vitamins and minerals and phytosterols and other fibers that are really key to lipid and blood sugar control. Okay, so this does that. We want to make sure that we're controlling the lipids as well. And I'm not aware of anything that shows berberines doing that. So, okay, soluble fiber. So they're going to create this thick matrix, right? This gel. Well, now if you can kind of see the back of the bottle, it's just kind of running around. So, well, we have this gel, but it's just kind of like flubber moving through all these holes. What do? Soluble fibers then are long and strandy and they don't soak up water. So they get in there and they create this like mesh so it's kind of like a sieve in your gut. And so what happens is this mesh then holds on to this gel and that helps you hold on to food while still at the same time getting nutrient absorption, getting your intestinal tract, the stuff moving through at a proper rate. So those two fibers need to work together. And again, berberine is not giving you both of those types of fiber. So that's just a little bit about fiber this morning, guys. We'll be back tomorrow and talk some more about insulin resistance. I know I have some calls left. Friday got really hectic, and I have some calls left from Friday. I also see a lot of texts this morning in from over the weekend that I need to go deal with. So I'm going to go start working on that, but we'll see you all tomorrow morning. Is there something anybody wants to know about how it links to insulin resistance? Oh, you know what, you guys? By the way, I missed this whole piece. So what I did to reverse my diabetes and insulin resistance is just this. A tea in the morning. I actually did a tea in the morning, a pre-meal drink before I eat anything, and another one before my second meal of the day. It's now a tea in the morning, a tea in the afternoon, and a fiber before your biggest meal of the day. Either way, it's about $5 a day. That's what reversed my diabetes, reversed my high blood pressure, reversed all of that. You can get it just by going to the link in my bio. Now, there's a link there too for you to get a hold of me and just have a chat if you want to know if this will work for you or just need a little knowledge. So just reach out. You're new. So I talk about insulin resistance. Today I was just talking a little bit about fiber and how important it is to insulin resistance. But a lot of days I talk about any of these things like neuropathy, depression, arthritis, vertigo, and how insulin resistance is either linked to or causing those. So I want people to understand that our health is not as fractured as we think it is. It's not like we have all of these things and they're all so separate from each other. That most of them, probably 95% of the things that we suffer from today that are lifestyle related are linked to insulin resistance. So when we start making these links and people can start seeing that all of this stuff, headaches and vertigo and joint pain and neuropathy and all of these things are all really linked to one core piece, we can address that core piece and people start to get their health back. So if you're suffering with any of the things up there and you need to know how they link to insulin resistance, let me know and I'll talk about it. Your type 2 diabetes. So join me back tomorrow and we'll just talk about maybe the progression of insulin resistance to type 2 diabetes. What if you cannot afford the products? So you can do some intermittent fasting and you can cut back on your sugars and you can try to get in a right amount of fiber with what you eat in a full day. You guys, when I started the system, and I guess it just depends on everybody's value system, right? But I was sick and I knew that I was literally dying and that if I didn't change something, I was either going to be so incapacitated my kids would have to take care of me, and I do not want that to happen, or um, I would just leave them with a big mess. And I didn't want either one to happen. So I had tried a bunch of things. I had tried all the, can I do it on my own with just have the groceries in my house? Can I do, and I did all of that for years and I wasn't getting better. I started the system and I'm like, oh my gosh, I don't think I can afford this. I don't know how I'm going to do it. And it's the one thing that changed my entire health. I was on 10 different medications. I would say 10. It was 13 because I wasn't counting the pain medications, but I was on 13 different medications, about $10 a pop copay on those. That's about $130. I don't take any medications now. So I pay about $150 to not pay $130 and have my health actually get better. That was worth it to me. But then, because I'm doing intermittent fasting and I'm not eating all the junk foods and all the little things that sneak in that none of us want to admit to, um, my grocery budget dropped anyway. So between those two things, the amount I spend overall in a month is probably a third of what I spent before. So we have this idea that stuff is expensive because we part of it's a resistance to change and doing better, right? Part of it's just a resistance to doing something different. So that's that's just okay, so guys, I'm gonna head. So type 2 diabetes we'll talk about tomorrow. I'm gonna head out. I've got all this stuff to do, and we will be back in the morning and we'll just talk about diabetes and maybe riff off of anything. Yeah. So VGP says not buying as much junk food and instead buying this product. And that's how it goes. So when I look at it, you guys, when I actually sat down and was honest with myself, because beforehand, I nobody wants to be honest with how much money you're spending on buying that one candy bar, but that one candy bar is happening every day, or that one bag of chips, or that one soda that becomes three sodas that becomes four sodas in a day, and doing that daily. Nobody wants to take a look at that and count it all up because then we'd have to admit to how sucky we're treating our bodies. But when we added up, and when I added up, it was anywhere between $15 to $20 a day because I was doing a job where I was in my car all day. It was insane. And that was $20, 15 to $20 a day to destroy my health and put me on medications, or $5 a day to build my health and get me off of medications. It's your choice in the end. I'll talk to you guys tomorrow. Have a great day.